Northern Venezuela is grappling with the catastrophic aftermath of a rare and historic seismic event. Two powerful earthquakes, measuring magnitude 7.2 and 7.5, struck the nation's northern coast in rapid succession on Wednesday evening. The back-to-back tremors, classified by seismologists as an earthquake doublet, triggered widespread panic, leveled residential and commercial structures, severed critical utility grids, and left at least 32 people dead and over 700 injured. Rescue crews still digging through mounds of concrete and twisted rebar. Authorities warn that the casualty count is expected to rise exponentially in the coming days. The double disaster represents the most violent tectonic activity to hit Venezuela in more than a century. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez has declared a state of national emergency, mobilizing all branches of the military, civil defense units, and emergency medical services to spearhead an expansive search and rescue operation. As night falls over the devastated cities, the glare of emergency floodlights illuminates scenes of utter destruction across multiple states, transforming once vibrant urban centers into active disaster zones. According to the United States Geological Survey, USGS, and the Venezuelan Foundation for Seismological Research, FUNVISIS, the disaster began at approximately 6:04 p.m. local time. The first major event was a magnitude 7.2 earthquake centered near the Yaracuy region in western Venezuela, striking at a relatively shallow depth of 22 kilometers. Residents were rushing into the streets to escape the initial violent shaking. A second, more powerful magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck just 39 seconds later at a depth of 10 kilometers. Seismologists define an earthquake doublet as two large earthquakes of similar magnitude that occur close together in both time and space. Unlike a traditional main shock followed by smaller aftershocks, a doublet involves two distinct ruptures along complex fault systems. In this instance, the immense stress transfer from the first rupture almost instantly triggered a secondary, shallower rupture along an adjacent segment of the Boconó fault zone, the primary tectonic boundary running through northern Venezuela where the Caribbean and South American plates collide. The shallow depth of the secondary 7.5 magnitude tremor amplified the horizontal ground acceleration, sending violent shock waves rippling across a 500-kilometer swath of the country. The prolonged duration of the combined shaking, lasting nearly 2 continuous minutes, proved catastrophic for thousands of buildings that had already been structurally compromised by the first shockwave. The violent ground motion was felt as far away as Bogotá, Colombia, and across the northern Amazonian states of Brazil. The capital city of Caracas, home to over 5 million residents, nestled within a narrow mountain valley, bore the emotional and structural brunt of the disaster. In the affluent eastern districts of Chacao, known for its high-rise residential towers and commercial centers, the scene was one of immediate chaos. Initial emergency reports from Chacao confirm 8 fatalities and at least 140 injuries. The majority of casualties occurred when decorative concrete facades, glass awnings, and brick masonry peeled away from high-rise buildings, raining down onto pedestrians and gridlocked traffic below. In Los Palos Grandes, a 10-story residential apartment building suffered a partial progressive collapse when its soft-story ground-floor parking garage buckled under the horizontal shearing forces of the 7.5 magnitude quake. The upper 9 floors pancaked downward, trapping an estimated 40 residents inside. In nearby Altamira, wide cracks fractured the pavement surrounding the iconic Plaza Francia, while several multi-story office buildings suffered severe structural warping, broken windows, and collapsed interior ceilings. The densely populated western municipality of Libertador experienced massive structural failure, particularly within its older, historical sectors and unregulated hillside settlements. Local field hospitals have confirmed 11 deaths and over 300 injuries within Libertador alone. Rescuers fear dozens more are buried beneath collapsed colonial-era brick homes and informal masonry dwellings. In the historic center of Caracas, El Centro, several centuries-old adobe and brick structures collapsed entirely, blocking narrow streets with piles of rubble. Major government ministry buildings suffered significant interior wall collapses and shattered glass facades. Further west, in the sprawling working-class barrio of Catia, the earthquakes triggered localized landslides on steep hillsides. Dozens of self-built, unreinforced cinder block homes slid down the slopes, collapsing into one another. The structural integrity of thousands of remaining hillside dwellings is highly compromised, prompting mass evacuations. The southern municipality of Baruta, characterized by commercial strips and rolling residential valleys, suffered extensive infrastructure disruptions. Baruta officials have reported 3 confirmed deaths and 85 injuries, mostly related to vehicular accidents caused by collapsing infrastructure and falling concrete debris. In Las Mercedes, the city's premier commercial and nightlife district, several modern retail complexes and restaurant pavilions suffered structural frame shifts. Overhead pedestrian bridges buckled and detached from their concrete anchors. In Prados del Este, shifting soils cracked major retaining walls along the highway, causing massive fissures that swallowed vehicles and rendered primary thoroughfares entirely impassable. The coastal state of La Guaira, situated directly north of Caracas across the Avila mountain range, has been officially designated a disaster zone by the executive branch. Being located directly on the coastal fault line, La Guaira experienced violent vertical and horizontal ground motions that devastated its maritime infrastructure and coastal resorts. Emergency personnel have pulled 6 bodies from collapsed waterfront structures, with 120 individuals treated for severe trauma. Multiple mid-rise hotels and beachfront condominiums along the coast suffered catastrophic structural breaches. Balconies collapsed into public promenades, and foundational piles shifted toward the sea. The port of La Guaira, Venezuela's primary maritime gateway for food and medical imports, suffered extensive damage to its shipping crane rails, container storage yards, and concrete piers, halting all commercial maritime operations. The rural and semi-urban communities closest to the epicenters faced immediate isolation due to the destruction of regional transportation corridors. Combined reports from Yaracuy and Falcon confirmed 4 deaths and over 90 injuries, with many remote villages still inaccessible to emergency teams. In San Felipe and surrounding municipalities, older unreinforced masonry structures, churches, and agricultural warehouses crumbled. At least 3 critical concrete bridges spanning regional rivers collapsed or suffered major foundational shifts, completely cutting off primary overland transit and stalling the movement of emergency convoys from western Venezuela toward the capital. The compounding effect of the doublet earthquakes instantly paralyzed Venezuela's critical infrastructure, severely complicating initial search, rescue, and medical triage efforts. Within seconds of the 7.5 magnitude shockwave, the localized electrical grids across Miranda, Aragua, Carabobo, Falcon, and the capital district tripped and collapsed. High-voltage transformers exploded or suffered severe internal damage due to violent shaking, plunging millions of households into total darkness. Cellular towers lost power or became structurally misaligned, resulting in a near-total blackout of mobile networks, internet connectivity, and landline telephone services. Emergency dispatchers were forced to rely on high-frequency satellite phones and amateur radio operators to coordinate rescue deployments across the valley of Caracas. The transportation network of northern Venezuela was completely rendered non-functional within an hour of the disaster. The Caracas metro system immediately suspended all operations. Trains were halted inside tunnels, forcing thousands of passengers to evacuate on foot along dark, narrow subterranean tracks. Stations have been locked down pending comprehensive structural assessments of underground concrete structural columns. Simón Bolívar International Airport, Maiquetía, located in La Guaira, was forced into an indefinite, total closure. Shockwave vibrations shattered expansive glass terminal walls and caused large sections of heavy acoustic ceiling tiles to collapse onto check-in counters and security checkpoints. The runway tarmac suffered localized cracking and buckling, forcing all inbound international flights carrying relief supplies to divert to neighboring nations or Western domestic airports. As the dust begins to settle, a massive logistics operation is underway to save those trapped beneath the rubble and stabilize the displaced population. Immediately following the marine-adjacent ruptures, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center and the U.S. Tsunami Warning System issued a widespread tsunami watch and warning for the southern Caribbean, including the coastal fringe of Venezuela, ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, and Trinidad and Tobago. Tens of thousands of coastal residents fled on foot and in vehicles toward higher ground, causing severe traffic jams on steep coastal access roads. Following real-time data analysis from deep ocean assessment buoys, oceanographers confirmed that the lateral strike-slip motion of the fault zone had not displaced the massive volumes of water required to generate a destructive wave. The tsunami warning was officially canceled hours later, allowing coastal residents to return and focus on earthquake recovery. Recognizing the overwhelming scale of the structural ruin, the Venezuelan government issued an urgent international appeal for humanitarian and technical assistance. The global community responded rapidly. Specialized urban search and rescue (USAR) contingents equipped with structural listening devices, thermal imaging cameras, and canine units from the United States, Mexico, El Salvador, and Ecuador are arriving via military transport aircraft. Humanitarian flights from Colombia, the Dominican Republic, and Qatar have landed at functional military air bases in the interior of the country, delivering field hospitals, trauma medicine kits, water purification units, and temporary emergency shelters. Hospitals across Caracas and central Venezuela are operating far beyond maximum capacity. Medical personnel are treating hundreds of patients in parking lots and outdoor courtyards due to fears of structural instability inside hospital wings from ongoing aftershocks. With academic calendars suspended and all schools closed for the remainder of the week, school gymnasiums, public parks, and military installations are being converted into makeshift encampments for thousands of families whose homes have been destroyed or deemed unsafe. Structural engineers face the monumental, long-term task of inspecting tens of thousands of residential towers and hillside structures before normalcy can return to the battered nation. The double fault rupture of 2026 will live on as a stark reminder of the volatile tectonic forces slumbering beneath the Caribbean coastline, leaving a scar on Venezuela's infrastructure and communities that will take years of international cooperation, strict rebuilding codes, and immense financial investment to heal.
A 20 metros del edificio empieza a temblar y paro el carro y se cayó el edificio donde estaba el semáforo. Yo estaba parado ahí.
El edificio que se encuentra justo al frente de la sede de la CAF en Altamira.
Mira, la ambulancia que se venga, ustedes también.